All right, everyone, welcome back to today's episode of Words of the Wise. Today I have Chief Flowers from Demopolis PD in Alabama, 33 years total in law enforcement, the past 7 years as Chief of Police. Welcome to the show, Chief Flowers. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Of course, I'm looking forward to it. So, give us a little bit of background. You started in this career super young, 18 years old. So, give us some insights into the what, the why, the how.
Yes, I started here. I actually started when I was about 14 years old. They had an Explorer program here. And I started when I was about 14. And then when I graduated high school, they offered me a job as a dispatcher. And that's kind of how I got in there. When I got 20, that's when they made me a police officer and they sent me to police academy. Then I came back to work after the academy. I came back and worked as an officer. Then I was promoted to sergeant and then lieutenant over patrol. And then they moved me to investigations, and I spent some time over there. Was a lieutenant over there. Then they made me captain over the entire department, and right up under the chief. And when he left, that's when I got appointed to be the chief of police.
So, 14 years old, you started at the Explorer program. What was it that drew you into this profession?
Actually, I had a lot of friends that I had a few friends that had joined before me, and the way they would come to school and talk about it kind of interested me, and that's how I got into it.
Mm. Was it the values of what law enforcement did that you think drew you in?
Yes, the values and the camaraderie and all that.
Yeah, I love it. What do you think is the secret? You started so young. Obviously, you've had a long career, 33 years. What do you think is the secret to not burning out and having a long and successful career where you can make it to 33 years and still love what you do?
I think what I've did over the years, if you, especially at a patrolman level, if it's so much to do, if you get tired, let's say you're working traffic, and you get tired of working traffic, you can always jump over and do some community policing, and then when you when you feel it come back to you to go work some more traffic or work something else, then you're able to do that.
Mm.
Especially in a small department, bigger departments, they just assign to one division and that's really all they do. But here, in a small department, you have a variety, you can do certain things.
Do you think that professional development is a piece of wellness and retention and longevity that keeps people in their career longer?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. And I know that training is something that you guys focus on organizationally. Can you talk a little bit about that? How you're training and developing maybe the younger people in the organization to have that long and successful career?
Yes, you always, in my opinion, we always want to train a person to take the next job ahead of them, whether it's if you're a patrolman and you want to be a sergeant or you want to be an investigator, we try to go ahead and start training them for new positions early on. And that way, once a spot opens up or they mature to that level, then they're able to do that.
It's interesting because the last 2 weeks I feel like this topic of conversation has come up quite a bit. And I think a lot of chiefs now are looking at how can we develop proactively and as early as possible. Whereas maybe historically it was, we're going to wait until someone gets a promotion and then we're going to train them for that position. But now it seems like a lot of chiefs are saying, no, let's train them as early as possible so that when a position does become available, they're ready and rearing to go. And then of course, there's always going to be continued training and education from there.
That's right.
And that's the approach that you guys take too.
Yes, ma'am.
You had said that culture was something that was important and that it's important for leaders to show that they care and that they value their employees. Can you talk a little bit about that? And what are some of those maybe tactical steps and things that you guys do to show people that you care and show people that they're valued?
You know, the thing I like to do here is promote a team environment, regardless of your rank or your division that you're assigned to. If you bring people in and you consider everybody a part of the team, it kind of works better for me. I don't know, each department is different, but for me, it's worked better if you have like a team environment and you include everybody on stuff that you can include everybody on.
Yeah. How it's interesting because I've had this conversation too where um you have a lot of different personalities within an organization, and sometimes people can be mean to each other, and I've heard a lot about how internal stress can really impact people, and negative peer judgment can also impact people. What are the conversations that you're having that creates that team environment where people do maybe not always like each other, but they care for each other and they respect each other and they value each other enough to operate as a team and share that same mission? Is there anything specific that you tell them so that they're maybe a little bit nicer to each other and create that culture?
Yes, I try to, I always try to tell them that you may be better at something, you may be better at this particular thing, but that don't make you better than the other person. They
Mm,
may be better at another issue. Like, for instance, we have proactive officers and we have officers that's more community oriented. That don't make them no better police officers than the other. They're
mhm.
just better at certain things. And that's what I try to teach.
Yeah. And I think that that's a really great lesson. And we've all been there before where I think it's easy to pass judgment. And I think, especially when you don't understand fully the other person's role within an organization or maybe how hard it is, I think people are quick to judge. So I like that you have that conversation about, hey, just because they are maybe falling short here, they're better than you here. And how can we learn from each other? And how can we not pass judgment on each other? And how can we try to uplift one another as much as possible?
Sure.
What do you think right now is one of the biggest challenges within the law enforcement profession?
I think the biggest challenges in the law enforcement profession now is like recruitment. Even though, to me, this has always been the best job in the world, but everybody don't think that. And just to be able to recruit somebody and bring them into your organization, at least see what it's about, is
Mm,
the hardest task. I feel like once I get somebody here, I can I can teach them what they and show them that this is not a bad job, but it's just getting them here that has been the task, so to speak.
what do you think it is specifically that the newer generation who's coming into this career today that they're looking for? Is there anything specific that you have found that has helped to, kind of draw them in and create that interest?
Well, what has helped me is trying to make it seem like it's and trying to make it exciting for them. I think the young generation, they want to have a job that's exciting, and you have to have that talk with. Can't everybody come in here on the SWAT team? You can't
Mm,
come in the door and be on the SWAT team. You can't come in the door and be an investigator. You have to come in and start at here at the bottom and work your way up to these positions. But you can still have fun and it can still be an exciting job until you get there.
yeah. I think it's always, every generation talks about the younger generation in different ways. But I think it's always been that way. I think we always want to rush to things. I noticed that too, where I've had a lot of individuals reach out to me and ask me about, my career and what I do, and they're like, "How do I do what you do?" And I'm like, "Well, 10 years of boots on the ground, grinding, doing these things." And they never like that answer. they're they're always like, "Hey, wait, how can I just do it now?" And I'm like, "Well, you don't really have the experience to do it now. You don't have the knowledge, of the industry to do it now. What you guys do, and obviously I like to think what we do is specialized. And so it takes a lot of time and effort and experience to be able to specialize in something. And what you just said, like, those assignments are specialized assignments. It's going to take you some time to, like, get your feet wet. But I do find that people they want to skip the line a little bit.
Yes, and I can look back. And what's helped me is I've been able to look back on my own career. When I was here, like I said, I started when I was early, so I progressed, and I was here longer than people that was older than me. and they got promoted over me. And I asked the chief the question, look, I've been here long, why didn't I get there? You're not mature enough yet, and all that. And at the time, it made me mad at the time. But now, looking back over my career, they was right. I wasn't mature enough.
Mm-hmm.
And now that I am mature enough, I can look back and see that.
Yeah. Yeah, I try to look back too. I think it's important to understand like where you came from, and it's also important to kind of draw from your own experiences to have um, relatability with people and to understand where they're coming from. Um, I do think for me, of course, I wanted to fast track things. Like, of course, I wanted to be, I think everyone wants to feel like they're succeeding, and they're at the top of their game. But I do remember um, having the mentality of like, I want to get there. And so I'm going to work as hard as I possibly can to get there. I never had the mentality of, I want to get there right now without putting in the work. And I think there's a difference. I think that you have to be willing to put in the work. You have to be willing sometimes to put in more work than other people are willing to do to stand out. Um, Not to the detriment of your own wellness. Obviously I talk about that a lot and, being able to take care of yourself, but I think you have to understand that things do take time. And I have told people this before. People have come to me for mentorship, and I've told them that taking your time and like slowing down a little bit is honestly something I wish I would have done more. I think I did that in some cases, but I wish I would have done that more because you never know the best parts of your life or your career until it's in the rearview mirror. I think we're all so quick where we just want the next thing, the next thing, the next thing. And I look back and I'm like, wow, there were some things in there that were really cool and really fun, and I'll never get the opportunity to do that again, or I'll never be as young as I was doing those things. And so I always try to encourage people like, yes, have goals, strive for those goals, work really hard for those goals, and know that there's no shortcuts in life ever. But also be grateful for where you are and like take a breath, like look around, be present, be mindful. Like, the saying, smell the roses, just know that you're never going to be as young as you are today. Some of these moments are a lot cooler in hindsight than you think they will be. And so I wish I would have done that when I was younger. It's just been a little bit more present and mindful
And
on the
that's
way
me.
up.
I look back at stuff now and be like, it means more to me now than it did back then.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. And I hope that by us having these conversations, those younger men and women who are coming in can recognize that of like, yeah, like you will probably get there one day. Like if you have your eyes set on a specific goal or, a specific role within the organization, you can probably get there one day. But don't try to shortcut the work that it takes to get there, and like take your time, smell the roses, enjoy it, enjoy the ride, because you blink and your whole career is behind you. It's crazy.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you for words of wisdom for the younger generation. That obviously I told you the things that I wish I would have known when I was younger, but is there anything that you wish that you would have known when you were younger that you could pass on to the younger generation?
Yeah. So I would just like to tell them to look, learn, the stuff a lot of the stuff that I've learned over my years. Uh, I would say I've learned more by seeing other people's mistakes and
Mm,
was able to learn from them. We can get on the internet right now and we can look at what we should not be doing.
mm,
It's easier for us to get online or pick up a newspaper, which I know many people don't read newspaper no more. But you can easily look as far as law enforcement or any career for that matter, and you can look at stuff that you should not be doing all day long. And my thing is learn from that. Learn by other people's mistakes. Don't wait. All of us have lessons that we have learned personally.
yeah.
But if you can avoid those by learning by somebody else's mistakes, then you'll be better off, I think. I know I would.
I would agree with that. I actually, when I was growing up, a lot of that, of like me being like, I just don't want to end up like that person, or I don't want to make that mistake that that person made. A lot of that kept me on a better path. I wouldn't say I always chose the best path when I was younger, but I do think it helped me a lot. It was like a meter of like how to be, and of course, we're always going to learn from our own mistakes and our own experiences, but I like that advice a lot of like, look around, who do you want to be like and who do you not want to be like, and how can you learn from both? There is a saying that I like a lot. It says, if you're not learning, you're dying. And it's this idea of how can we develop ourselves constantly? And how can we learn from everything, the good, the bad, the indifferent? And how can we continue to develop ourselves? And that's a really good way, is just opening up your eyes and being super mindful of other people. But then also, how can you learn from the good stuff too? Because there's other people who are modeling the way that are really good examples, or people who could be mentors for you that you could also learn from.
Especially older people. Like I can look at our younger guys and we can have a situation happen. And they can tell me one thing, and me with my experiences and stuff that has happened to me, I know exactly what they say it happened. That's because I've been there and I've done that, and I know. And if I could go back and, even when I was younger in my career, and, I had older people try to talk to me, and I'm like, that old guy don't know what he's talking about.
Yeah.
And now I look at it now and I see them saying that old guy talking about me now don't know what he's talking about. When I do, when I can look and see it coming, like if you have an officer, and I'm just using this for example, it has not happened here. Let me just state that. But if you got an officer that's speeding around town, you constantly getting complaints, and you're trying to get him to slow down, and you're trying to tell him, I bring him in here, sit him down, and try to tell him to slow down, and he's thinking to himself, no, this old guy don't know what he's talking about. Then the next thing you know, he had an accident. I've that kind of stuff is what I'm talking about. Learn to, listen what older people have to say, and when somebody tries to give you advice or mentor you, take that knowledge.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a two-way door. I think that, and I'll categorize myself as one of the older people. I think that we can learn from the younger generation because they have a different perspective and different things to bring to the table. But I agree. I used to do that too. I would look at the old people and be like, I'm going to do it my way. I'm younger. I got this thing. I'm more creative or whatever. And I think that you have to respect the knowledge that comes with experience. But there's always going to be a level of people wanting to put their hand on the stove, even though you told them it's hot, and then they have to learn the hard way sometimes, and then when we see it happen, we could be you know, sitting back in our chair being like, I told you that oven or that stove was hot.
That's
you know
right.
and I think that it's really up to all of us to understand that we all have value and that we should all learn from each other. And I do think seeking out mentorship is really powerful, and it's not done enough. And I think that if people come to us asking for mentorship, we should be able to point them in the right direction. And, if we don't have the capacity, maybe we can find other resources or other people that do. And if we do have the capacity, then, put as much effort into that as possible. And then as younger people, like I remember when I was young, I was always seeking out mentors. I was always looking at who do I want to be like? And there were a few environments where I was in where I was like, man, I don't want to be like anyone here. And then I had to change my environment. I had to find people who I wanted to be like. And so I would encourage anyone who's, looking to grow to look for people and like you said, be able to be teachable and be able to grow, because otherwise you're going to be stuck in one spot and you're not going to grow and you're not going to get those opportunities that you're looking for. Well, I appreciate you coming on here and talking to me about wellness and leadership. Is there anything I missed that you want to add before we wrap for the day?
No, ma'am, that's about it. I thank you for having me.
Thank you. Yeah, no, thank you. I really appreciate your time.